Bill O'Reilly, anchor of the No Spin News, author of Confronting Evil, host of the We'll Do It Live podcast. Bill, good to see you. Why do you think the president reposted that clip of you today? What message was he trying to send?
Well, he knows how brilliant I am and
Yes,
wants
we
to
all
be
do.
associated with that brilliance,
Yeah.
you know. What I said is absolutely true. It's going to be a very close midterm election, bet machine or not. And that if you are in the Republican precinct and you go against a still popular leader, you lose. That's just analysis. That's not partisanship. And
So you think Susan Collins, for example, in Maine, should get a lot closer to Donald Trump?
I'm not sure about Ms. Collins. That's a totally unique situation in Maine, particularly with the shooting from ICE up there. That's a crazy situation. But in a standard voting scenario, you stick with the winner. And so that was the message that I put out there, and apparently the president liked it.
Do you believe, as I do, that Thursday's speech is about trying to pressure the Senate to pass the SAVE Act and ... Why spend political capital on something that's not going to happen?
It's a good question. I have to see what he's got, and it's not fair to analyze something we don't know.
Yeah.
So if the president has really hard information that Russia, and that's what we're talking about, got into our electoral system and influenced the vote no matter how they did it, the nation needs to hone in on that. That's not just a frivolity. Now, knowing Donald Trump, he can deal with 6 or 7 other issues, which I think he's going to have to, particularly Iran, as that heats up over there. And then there's the affordability, which I wrote a column on BillO'Reilly.com. I hope you read it. And you should read all my columns.
I do.
Okay.
I have an email alert for them, Bill. But I want to get back to this, okay? Because you investigated the 20...
Let me make my point. Affordability, we just heard it on Cuomo's show. He brings on a guy who wrote a book. Cuomo asks a logical question. How do you deal with affordability? The guy totally avoids the question, dodges the question, because he doesn't have anything. The Democrats don't have anything, have no solutions. Now, if Trump takes the time on, is it tomorrow night or Thursday night?
Thursday
night. Okay. Takes the time to explain affordability and what his administration is doing, that would be a good thing for the president to do. So he's got affordability, he's got Iran, and he's got Russia poking around in our vote. You can cover those 3 things, and I hope he does.
Okay, so you investigated the 2020 claims by President Trump 6 years ago. You lost a lot of viewers and subscribers to BillO'Reilly.com because you didn't believe him. You said the evidence isn't there. I questioned Trump's claims during the 2020 elections because I didn't see the evidence and wasn't being provided. I was invited not to return to my job because of it. What evidence would there need to be to make, just politically, relitigating something that is terrible for Republicans to talk about worth it?
Well, Putin did this, Putin did that. Arizona was impacted this way. Michigan was impacted that way. Specific. Now, look, back in 20, I didn't have subpoena power. I don't have it now. So my investigation is dependent upon people who are on the scene, like William Barr, the Attorney General at the time. So I'm leaning on him to guide me into an area of yes or no. If it's yes, how big is it? We also checked in with the Supreme Court Justice Alito, who was in Pennsylvania overseeing this. Now, Barr and Alito, both honest men in my opinion, didn't have enough to present it to the Justice Department. That's the fact.
Yep.
But maybe now there's more. So what's wrong with hearing the more?
I'm not, it's a question whether it's right or wrong or anything else to hear it. I'm thinking from a political standpoint, every time Donald Trump brings up 2020, it is harmful to Republicans because every Republican is forced to answer for it by the media. Fair or not, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. What needs to be there to make it worth it to relitigate this?
Hard evidence that Russia did X, Y, and Z, and it paid off for Biden.
You think Fox News gets their $787 million back?
No, because that's a totally different story.
I know.
Okay, look, you're an honest journalist. I'm an honest journalist. We did our best to find out the level of voter fraud accusations. We don't have subpoena power. We can't go into state records.
Yeah, you said.
But in my estimation, and I believe yours, we came to the conclusion in the public arena there was not enough to challenge this election. Now, that could change on Thursday night, Leland.
It certainly could. It certainly could. This appears to be tied to this last-ditch effort to pass the SAVE Act. And President Trump, when talking about Lindsey Graham, I'm going to get your thought on that in a second, said that this was the most important thing to Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham was a pragmatist. He knew the votes weren't there in the Senate. They're not there. Why keep pushing for this if it's not what Trump will blame a midterm loss on? Republicans lose. He says, look, it's not me. It is the fact that the Senate did not pass the SAVE Act. They weren't Trumpy enough. It's Republicans' fault.
Because it's passionate on his part. It enveloped him. And he believes it 100% that there was voter fraud. It's not like a policy. This is personal, like in The Godfather, okay? It's business, not personal, Sonny. This is personal to him.
Yep.
And always has been. I mean, it drove him nuts to lose to Biden. He does not believe that that election was fair. So psychologically, I understand if you're going to get new information,
you
put it out there.
All right. I want to get you on Lindsey Graham, because I think both you and I had a lot of respect for him. May have disagreed or agreed, but a lot of respect for him. Here is part of your interview with Lindsey Graham, one of the last before he died.
Does it know anything?
Well,
have you seen that across?
Here's what I've seen. When I first started this business, you got rewarded for problem solving and, sort of knowing what you're talking about. All the energy now is to loud, not knowledgeable, just loud.
I was him talking about AOC. President Trump, who I know you speak to a lot, I think he feels like he lost a real friend and ally here.
Well, he did. Yeah. He liked Graham. Graham would play miniature golf with him or whatever they're doing out there. I don't know what they're doing.
You always got to dog golf. Why do you always have to dog golf?
I have many reasons, but I don't want to waste time on it now. The windmill confuses me. Trump trusted Lindsey Graham, and Trump does not trust many elected politicians. That was number one. Now, what's interesting about that interview, it was the last extensive interview that Senator Graham gave, is that Senator Graham's passions were built around the nobility of America, that we must use hard power to right wrongs, like I wrote in Confronting Evil. And you can see the whole interview on BillO'Reilly.com. We have the whole thing. It's 45 minutes long. And he has never wavered from that, Lindsey Graham. He basically says, I'm a hard power guy. If there's something wrong in the world, something that needs to be corrected, we're the only ones going to do it. Now, there is a soft power crew led by Barack Obama who see it the opposite way. But that's a good debate to have. And Graham, I was on a phone call, I guess I shouldn't even say this, but I was on a phone call with Graham and the president, all right, about a year ago, I think. And they were talking about Putin and Ukraine obsessed Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
I didn't say much on that call. My job isn't to butt in. My job is to assess information. Trump listened to what Senator Graham said, but he didn't buy it. So it wasn't like Graham would come in there and say, hey, Mr. President, you got to do this, and Trump would jump up and do it. That's not what that relationship was built on. Trump wanted to hear the hard power point of view.
There was nobody better at advocating for his position, what you said, the nobility of America, than Lindsey Graham. Bill, thank you as always. Great to have you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.